Perfect. So thank you everyone for coming along to tonight's webinar. My name is Shay Collis and I'm the Relationship Manager for Good Sports Clubs in Northern Tasmania. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Good Sports Healthy Minds program and mental health. So I will start off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the country in which we're meeting on today and paying my respects to elders past, present and emerging, as well as paying my respects to any Aboriginal people that might be in the room tonight. And I'll also go on to just pay my respects to anyone in the room who might be experiencing a mental health illness or episode right now. So just a quick refresher on Good Sports if you're not familiar. Good Sports is Australia's largest and longest running health initiative in community sports. We've been working with local sporting clubs for about 2 decades to help them inspire themselves to be their best. So our team helps to support clubs to work through the program, which our core program is a 3-level program, which is designed to support long-term change around responsible alcohol management, safe transportation, and promoting a smoke-free environment. We also offer other programs to support positive mental health, healthy eating, junior role modelling, and preventing illegal drug harm. So our program is free and designed for busy volunteer-led clubs, which can be completed online or with the support of a Good Sports team member. So to start with, we're going to talk about a definition of mental health, and I do just want to quickly say that this presentation may touch on topics that might be activating or distressing for some individuals. And if you feel that you're being activated or finding yourself getting upset, please feel free to disconnect from the presentation. I am recording it, so you can come back and watch it later. And if you find yourself triggered, please contact your psychologist or Lifeline. So the terms mental health and mental illness are often used interchangeably, but it's important to know that they actually have 2 different meanings. So in the course of a person's lifetime, not all people will experience mental illness, but most people will face challenges with their mental health, which is essentially their mental well-being, just like we all have challenges with our physical well-being from time to time. So mental health is defined by the World Health Organization as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. It's important to note that the absence of a mental illness does not equate to mental health. Therefore, the 2 approaches must work together to promote mental health and prevent and treat mental illness. Now, mental illness, on the other hand, is collectively all diagnosable mental disorders or health conditions that are characterised by alterations in thinking, mood, or behaviour, or a combination of there, which is associated with distress and/or impaired functioning. Mental illnesses are often successfully treated and managed by individuals and healthcare professionals. There are many different types of mental illnesses, which have very many different symptoms and very many different impacts on people's lives. And they're treated by and managed by individuals in many different ways. As an individual, it's important to note that you're not required or qualified to expect a diagnosis or provide specific illness around a mental illness. That's not your job, and the role of your club is not to also diagnose. The role of your club is to provide an environment and a culture that supports mental health rather than identifies mental illness and encourages help seeking and reduces stigma. So as we said before, not all people who have experiencing bad mental health will have a mental illness. And just as someone who feels unwell may not have a serious illness, many people may have poor mental health without a mental illness. So mental illnesses, like other health problems, are often episodic, meaning that there are times of ill health and there are times of better or good health. The most common mental illnesses in Australia are anxiety disorders, which can afflict a person with persistent excessive worry and can make it difficult to take pleasure in or cope with day-to-day life. People with anxiety disorders may also develop substance use problems. The next one is clinical depression. So clinical depression is not rather a passing blue mood, but persistent feelings of sadness, worthlessness, and a lack of desire to engage in formally pleasurable activities. A complex mind and body illness, depression can be treated with drugs and/or therapy. The next most common mental illness is psychosis, which affects the mind where there has been some loss of contact with reality. Whether it be that someone becomes ill in this way, they can have a psychotic episode. Psychosis can lead to changes in mood, thinking, and abnormal ideas. Symptoms can include delusions, hallucinations, and bizarre behaviour. Then we have substance use disorder. Substance use disorder is a condition in which the use of one or more substance leads to a clinically significant impairment or distress. Substance use disorder refers to the overuse or the dependence on a drug, which leads to effects that are detrimental to the individual's physical and mental health or the welfare of others. While each drug produces different physical effects, all abused substances share one thing in common, that repeated use can alter the way the brain looks and functions. And finally, eating disorders. Eating disorders, which cover any range of physiological disorders characterized by abnormal or disturbed eating habits, are a serious mental illness characterized by eating, exercise, and body weight, shape, or change becoming an unhealthy preoccupation of someone's life. Eating disorders, just like all mental illnesses, are not a lifestyle choice, not a diet gone wrong, and not a cry for attention. Eating disorders can take many different forms and interfere with a person's day-to-day life. So it's important to know again that only a qualified medical professional can diagnose and provide the treatment. It's not the job of an individual or a sporting club. And in the corner here, you can see that 45% of Australians who are aged 16 to 85 years will experience a mental illness in some stage of their lifetime. So leading into this, 1 in 4 Australians aged 16 to 24 will suffer from a mental illness. And this is an age group that's heavily represented in sporting clubs. So sporting clubs need to be aware of the key role that they play in prevention and supporting those individuals that ask for help or that you think may be in need of help, by referring them to local mental health agencies who can assist them accordingly. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, suicide was the leading cause of death amongst people aged 15 to 44 years in the year 2015, with the suicide rate for men being 3 times higher than that of women. So this is a concern because mental health issues may not always have the insight to know that people are struggling. The longer that people delay getting help, the more difficult the recovery can be. And people with mental health problems are more likely to go get help if someone close to them suggests it. And that's why it's really important that as a sporting club, you're aware of mental health and you're aware of the support services that are available for individuals to go to. So what's the situation like with mental health right now? The ABC conducted a recent study and found some alarming things. The number of Australians reporting poor mental health has more than doubled compared to that of a month ago. The number frequently feeling despair has more than tripled, and those frequently feeling confusion is up more than 5 times. So mental health is a really important topic to be considering at your club and a really key reminder that you should be staying connected with your members and promoting those support services. So people with mental illness and mental health issues may not always know that they're suffering. They may also have more than one mental health issue at a time. And the longer that people delay getting help, the more difficult the recovery can be. People with symptoms of mental ill health are more likely to get help if someone close to them suggests it. So there are many issues that young people are facing right now with their mental health that can contribute to negative mental health episodes. Things such as coping with stress, school or study problems, body image, depression, bullying, and family conflict. And it's important to note that there's a lot of things happening in the life of a 16 to 24-year-old that can particularly increase these symptoms of mental ill health. So comorbidity, which is the existence and interaction between multiple disorders, commonly mental illness and substance use, is also a really important thing to consider. Comorbidity of mental illness and substance use is high in Australia, with the most prevalent interactions being depression and alcohol, as well as anxiety and alcohol for both males and females. There is no single cause for the two conditions, and some people use substances to relieve the symptoms of their mental illness. For others, external factors can lead to changes in mental health and increased use of substances. People with co-occurring conditions are not all the same, and each person with a mental illness and substance use condition experiences a unique combination of symptoms and issues. So it's really important just with this to consider that when a person's experiencing mental illness episodes, that they might be more inclined to using substances inappropriately. And that's something that clubs should be aware of and be promoting the positive message around usage. So there's many forms of stigma in society, and some are based on negative attitudes or beliefs. Others are due to a lack of understanding or misinformation. Stigma can discourage help seeking. Many people are reluctant to seek help because they don't understand what mental health symptoms mean or associate mental health issues with negative and inaccurate stereotypes. Stigma can negatively impact treatment outcomes. Mental well-being has a lot to do with staying engaged and active and living a contributing life and feeling accepted by others as part of a community. Stigma can erode that self-confidence and make people shy away from engaging with others, fearing misunderstanding and ridicule. A recent study by the Mental Health Council of Australia found that 85% of Australians with a mental health issue were worried about the way that other people would view them unfavourably because of their mental health experience. Stigma can also promote discrimination. Fear and ignorance can contribute to discrimination, making it harder for people to find work, to find a place to live, and to be accepted and valued as a member of their community. The Mental Health Council of Australia study also found that 71% of people with a mental illness had been treated as less competent after revealing their mental illness to other people. Stigma can cause isolation from the fear of negative attitudes and community misunderstanding, which can cause people to withdraw from society. As well as being distressing, social isolation, which is a low level of interaction with other people, and loneliness can make it harder for people to cope, which reduces their likelihood of seeking out support services. There are many different levels of stigma. There's self-stigma, which some of the most harmful effects of stigma can occur when it affects people, how people view themselves. Self-stigma can happen when someone accepts and takes on the prejudiced perception held by others. And then there's social stigma. Social stigma relates to society's attitudes and beliefs. These social stigmas can be established and reinforced by the media. Stigmatizing attitudes can make society harsher, less considerate, and less supportive. And then there's institutional stigma, which is stigma experienced by people in essential institutions, which can include healthcare settings, workplaces, educational settings. Institutional stigma can have a powerful impact on help-seeking behaviour. There's often an interaction between these different levels of stigma, and for some example, people may not experience self-stigma until they come into contact with a stigmatising environment. So there was another study by the National Survey of Mental Health Literacy and Stigma, which suggests that there's a link between increased community awareness of mental illness and social acceptance. So it concludes that better community awareness of mental illness could lead to an increased number of people sharing their experience. This in turn would increase personal contact and improve attitudes towards mental illness. This is why it's really important for clubs to be promoting mental illness and aiming to reduce stigma. So as I said, stigma exists mainly because some people don't understand mental illness and because some people have negative attitudes or beliefs towards it. Even some mental health professionals can have negative beliefs about the people that they care for. The media can also play a really negative part in reinforcing stigma against mental illness by portraying mentally ill people with inaccurate stereotypes, by drawing on extreme circumstances, for example, sensationalizing situations through unwarranted references to mental health and mental illness, and using demeaning or hostile language. So how do you as a club work towards creating a supportive environment? So through Good Sports support through the Healthy Minds program, we aim to do three main things. The first being promoting mental health. The second, working to reduce stigma. And the third, encouraging help seeking of individuals. So the actions that you take matter, and it really helps every individual. So there's a number of social protective factors and individual protective factors that individuals need to support their mental health. Social protective factors can include the presence of positive mentors and role models, support for development of skills and interests, opportunities to engage in community activities, feeling a sense of belonging, having positive social norms and attitudes, having clear expectations of behaviour, and having physical and psychological safety. Individual protective factors can include positive physical development, academic achievement and intellectual development, having a high self-esteem, emotional self-regulation, good coping skills and problem solving, and engagement in connection to school athletics with peers, culture and religion. So what sort of activities can clubs take to support an individual's mental health? So for our mental health, we need to be able to express our feelings, maintain our physical health, including diet and fitness, monitor our alcohol and drug usage, get enough quality sleep, spend time with friends and family, relax and enjoy our hobbies, and set realistic goals and develop new skills. Now, on the other side here, you can see there's a number of suggestions of things that clubs can do to be able to support these things. And I think it's really important to note right now that you can do these things even in an online capacity where you may need to be social distancing or you're not training or meeting as a club right now. So for example, creating open, safe and supportive environments that encourage talking and working to reduce stigma. You can do this in an online capacity by having a team group chat or having an online catch up via video call, or even the coaches or committee members phoning their players individually and having conversations with them. So you can keep the communication channels open in this way. Maintaining physical health. So it says they're good sports training sessions, but you could even be doing things such as posting training drills for the players to do at home in their own time, maybe an online challenge. You might even catch up for a video training session where everyone works out together. There's many different options there. And the next thing, role modeling positive social norms around safe drinking and anti-drug taking. Good Sports has actually developed a promotional and social media toolkit around the positive messaging of alcohol consumption throughout social isolation and COVID-19. And I can send a copy of this to everybody after the webinar. That contains social media tiles, which you can promote that messaging around safe consumption and role model that thing on your social media, which is a really positive way of role modeling those positive social norms. The next thing, get enough quality sleep. This is something that you can do in an online capacity as well. If you're talking to someone and they're saying that they're feeling tired or disengaged or unmotivated, all you have to do is ask them if they're getting enough sleep and if maybe they need to work on that or speak to their doctor about it. Spending time with friends and family, so club family days, social activities, creating support networks and creating a sense of belonging within your club. Obviously right now you're not allowed to meet in a face-to-face capacity, so it's really important to acknowledge whether or not you're engaging online with your members, whether it be posting something that the members can contribute stories or photos to, all the way through to hosting Zoom sessions. Some of my clubs have been doing trivia nights or just catch-ups or virtual dinner parties, etc. So all of those things can still contribute that sense of belonging. Being able to relax and enjoy hobbies. So sport is a fantastic and healthy hobby, and it's really important to consider that you're making the sport fun. So setting things for challenges at home or encouraging people to go out the backyard and have a kick of the footy or send in their footy skills, etc., can really encourage them to keep motivated in that hobby and keep connected. And then lastly, setting realistic goals and developing new skills. So it might even be chatting with your players about setting goals for the upcoming season or next season, or just tips of ways to get through isolation. Maybe they want to learn a new hobby and they can share it with their teammates, etc. So it's really important to look at it and think, how can we do this in an online capacity, and know that you are capable of doing so, and Good Sports is here to support you throughout these activities. So as a Good Sports Healthy Minds Club, it is a whole of club journey that goes through a range of different levels, things such as implementing policy, working to raise awareness around stigma, getting the club educated and becoming informed, promoting help seeking, becoming talkers at the club, and using your skills to connect with others. So firstly, being aware of stigma. So if you can see it, you can change it. When discussing perceptions, beliefs and attitudes about mental health and wellbeing in your club, consider your audience. It might not be an appropriate discussion to have with the whole player base, and it might be better addressed in ongoing discussions between senior leaders that highlight and are responsive to different kinds of stigma they witness or are told about it in the environment of the club. So maybe, for example, you might have a training session and someone might make a really stigmatizing comment, and they might not realize that it's a stigmatizing comment, but you've got to consider whether or not the audience is correct to pull them up and say, hey, you know what, that's actually a pretty stigmatizing comment, we're supportive of mental health, etc. If you feel that you're comfortable to say that in front of the whole player base and that this individual is not going to feel singled out, feel free to say that and contribute to that messaging around raising awareness for stigma. If you feel like it might not be the right environment, maybe after the training session, you can pull him aside for 5 minutes and say, hey, I'm not sure if you meant to say it in this way, but this actually contributes to stigma. At our club, we want to create a supportive environment, and this is probably what you can say next time. So just consider the ways of changing it, but definitely do address the stigma if you notice it in any situation. Next thing you can do is become educated and increase your knowledge within the club. So I'm going to start by saying that it's not a race and you don't need to be the first to finish. You don't need to be an expert, and you definitely don't need to know everything. But there are a number of things that you can do as a club, as an individual and as a committee to get educated around mental health and to learn some more about the topic and the ways that you can support people. So you can commit to joining the Good Sports Healthy Minds program, for example. You can jump online and do some online courses about mental health, or just read some news articles, etc., some positive sources. You can order booklets from Beyond Blue or Headspace and have them either sent to your members or available at the club rooms when the club rooms do eventually open up again, or maybe even posting the link to those resources on your social media page to read about the different topics. Next thing you can do would be invite a specialist to come and talk to your club about mental health, either to your club players or coaches, and then bringing in representatives from reputable mental health organisations and asking them to work with your players, such as Speak Up, Stay Chatty, for example. So I did do a bit of searching and I found 3 key online mental health courses, just short courses that are free and really easy accessible, that contain legitimate content that clubs might like to start looking at, for example, to get some education on mental health. So the first one is Mind Strength. So Mind Strength has short interactive modules which are aimed at increasing understanding of resilience and developing useful resilience building strategies. The second lot is the This Way Up mental wellbeing courses. So they cover a range of different topics, including mindfulness, coping with stress, managing insomnia, and student wellbeing. And then finally, an AFL specific one is the Tackle Your Feelings AFL program, which is a new mental health training program for local football clubs and coaches, which is aimed at improving clubs' understanding of awareness of mental health and enhancing the individual experience of their players, families, and the broader community. So I'll be able to send the links out to this after the session if you'd like to have a look or complete any of those modules. The next thing that you can do is make occasional behaviour everyday behaviour. So you can tell people what they're doing well. A lot of people spend their life being told where they need to improve, which can really be a negative impact on a person's mental well-being. So as many people see their negative characteristics, much more important than their positive ones. So a little reminder is always really nice. So remember to call out positive behaviour and compliment people where you think necessary. And the next thing is letting people know that they're valued. As we read before, a sense of belonging is a really important thing for a person's mental health. So let people know that positive contributions that they're making to a club or community or to you individually. And then listen like you mean it. So don't listen to reply, listen to understand. So a lot of people don't really listen very well. And can you remember the last time that someone really listened to what you had to say? Did it feel good? Listening is one of the easiest ways to make people feel valued and included. Be comfortable with the silence. Let the person think about what they're going to say before you reply. These are really simple things that you can do. And then finally, remember to check in often. So don't wait for a reason to ask people how they are. Just ask them. Say, how did you feel about last week's activity? How is school or uni going? Are you okay? How are you coping with isolation? Would you like me to phone you next week? Etc. Really simple check-ins that can open up that conversation path and have a really positive impact. And then promote help seeking. So you as a club can influence change. So using your social media to promote mental health and help seeking, providing educational material online or ordering physical copies to have at the club rooms or sending them out to your members, promoting help seeking in your regular conversations with players and community members, and then creating a help seeking culture are all things that you as a club can do. So becoming talkers and role modelling healthy minds behaviours. How can you do this? The first thing is to be available and interested. So remind the players that you are there to have a conversation with if they need. Keep those communication channels open. Secondly, becoming a talented listener. So again, listening to understand, not listening to reply. Knowing that you don't have to have all of the answers. As we said before, you're not experts. You're not required to be able to provide a diagnosis or to solve anybody's issues. It's more so just about encouraging the individual and letting them know that they are supported and that you're there on the journey to help them find the answers that they need. Checking in more often and then talking about your own feelings. So often people will be more inclined to open up if they're able to relate with you. So share how you're feeling. Maybe if you've had a bad day, you can say that you had a bad day. Or maybe you have a family member or a friend that you can relate to and say, my friend went through this as well. I understand. I'm here to support you. So we do have a conversations poster that we developed in conjunction with Speak Up, Stay Chatty, which is basically a brief skeleton outline on how to have a really simple mental health conversation with an individual. So it's been broken down into 4 components. The first of those components is asking. So starting the conversation and giving the person a chance to open up. Asking questions such as, you seem off your game, how are you going? Is everything okay? I noticed you missed last week's training session, are you okay? Etc. So just opening up the conversation, ready to sort of talk about what's going on. The second component is understanding. So asking open and empathetic questions to gain an understanding of what's going on in that situation. So potentially, how long have you been feeling this way? Is there anything else that's contributing to the problem? Or even just ask them to elaborate a little bit more about what they said. The next thing is referring. So understanding where you need to send them for more support. It might be that they don't need any further support and they're happy for you to just go on with their day. You might feel that they need to speak to their GP and work on getting a mental health and wellbeing plan in place. Or maybe you think that they need to talk to a help and crisis line straight away, and you can provide those numbers to them. And then the final component, which is really important, is just checking in. So the next time you see the person, or a week from then, etc., just saying, hey mate, how are you going since we last spoke? How did your appointment go? Would you like to talk again? Is there anything else on your mind? So just reminding the person that you are there to support them. You did care about the conversation that you had previously, and you want them to know that they feel valued. So what happens if someone comes to you with a problem that you can't solve? So it's really important to be prepared. Have access to the local support numbers and have their numbers available. This will help you to guide club members on how to advise individuals with the most appropriate community-based and national services. And then be safe. Recognise that you're not a mental health professional and you shouldn't be giving specific medical advice to individuals. You can still be supportive and caring without doing so. You should also be made aware of the services that you can contact with for any information if anything that you've heard yourself makes you uncomfortable or can cause you distress. Club members should also be made aware that privacy, confidentiality, and discreet behaviour in response to situations is essential. So the next important thing is to be connected. So consulting and collaborating with facilities in your local community is essential to build into your mental health and wellbeing procedures, which will ensure that the services you're recommending are appropriate as a club. This is a great chance for your club to become more connected and respected in your local community. So identifying contacting existing healthcare service providers in your community, which might include local general practitioners, counsellors, psychologists, family planning, social services, and then mental health services. Reach out to them and see how they might be operating, see if they would be able to support any members in your club and set up a possible referral service. You might even like to ask them to come into the club and to speak about what they offer to members in a non-formalised capacity. It's really important to note that these services would be operating in an online or reduced capacity right now, and they are still available to your members to promote if they need immediate help right now. We then have online support available. So there's a number of different contact services on the screen right now that you can use to refer to clubs and members if they feel that they might be needing extra support. So first up, there's Drug Info, which is a service of the Alcohol and Drug Foundation that provides confidential, non-judgmental alcohol and other drug telephone and email information and referrals. Secondly, we have the number for Beyond Blue, which provides mental wellbeing and support services. Beyond Blue also have a really large library of online resources around education on mental health and anxiety and depression, etc., that you can access and read. And then there's Lifeline, who provide a national 24-hour crisis support and suicide prevention service. Men's Line, who provide free help, support, referrals and counselling for men. Headspace, who provides information and support for young people, their parents and carers. And then finally, the Kids Helpline, who provide telephone and online counselling services specifically for young people aged between 5 and 25. And then there's a number of apps that you might be able to download or you can suggest to your members to download around mental health and anxiety, etc. The first of these apps is the Check-In. So the Check-In is a really cool app that's available for anybody who wants to plan a conversation about mental health with their friend. So you might feel uncomfortable about reaching out. You might feel like you don't know what to say or what to ask. And through the Check-In app, you can actually plan that conversation and how you're going to respond and what questions you're going to ask them. And then you can practice the conversation before you go and have that conversation with an individual. The next app is Mood Mission. So Mood Mission can help you learn new and better ways of coping with low moods and anxiety. You can tell Mood Mission how you're feeling and it will give you a tailored list of 5 different missions that you can do to help you feel better. So missions are activities and mental health strategies that are quick, easily achievable and backed up by scientific evidence. There's then the One Giant Mind app. So this is for anybody who wants to feel less stressed, calmer and more present and experience greater health and well-being. So they have a 12 short step meditation process, which people can begin to experience the benefits immediately. And it's all about mindfulness and meditation being an easy and effortless activity. There's then Smiling Mind. So Smiling Mind is again a meditation app specifically for young people, which was developed by a team of psychologists and uses mindfulness to boost calmness, contentment, and clarity. Mindfulness meditation has been shown to help manage stress, resilience, anxiety, depression, and improve general health and well-being. And then there's the Combined Minds app. So Combined Minds helps families and friends to find ways to provide the right environment to help the individuals that they support by affecting their own changes. So it's for people that are related or supporting people that are experiencing mental health issues and how they can look after themselves and provide appropriate environments in that space. And then finally, the Clear Fear app. So Clear Fear was developed by a clinical collaboration with young people, and it uses cognitive behavioural framework to help people change their anxious thoughts and emotions and alter anxious behaviours and calm fear responses. So again, it's in response to anxiety and a little bit of mindfulness in that sense. So they're all free apps that are really easy to use. I've tested them all myself, and they're sort of things that you can promote to your members potentially, or check out yourself to see if they might be able to help you or anyone else. So as a club, where to from here? There's 3 simple things that I think that clubs can sort of jump on the bandwagon and join right now. And the first of those is just organising and catch up with your Good Sports relationship manager, which is myself, to chat about the Healthy Minds program and talk about the activities that your club can undertake right now, or plan an activity for the future. So that might be organising for us to send you out appropriate resources, maybe organising for me to come and catch up with your community, whether it be in an online or a face-to-face capacity in the future, maybe planning a mental health round with your players, etc. So there's a number of different things that we can chat about in that meeting. And the second is promoting help seeking to your members. So after this session tomorrow morning, I'll be sending out an email which will contain all of the different resources I talked about, as well as some other mental health posters, social media posts, etc. So you can utilise these to promote help seeking to your members and promote that positive mental health messaging. And then thirdly, consider implementing a mental health and wellbeing policy. So Good Sports do have a template of a mental health and wellbeing policy, and then clubs can adapt this to suit their current situation, or to include the contact support services or the local places that they might have built relationships with. So that's something that you can start having conversations with your committee and your coaches and players about whether or not they might be interested in developing one and what they would like to see in that. So that brings me to the end of the formal presentation. The contact details for myself are on the screen there, but feel free to just unmute yourselves and ask me any questions, or to utilise the chat function. I'm happy to have a conversation with you about anything that you might be concerned about, or clarify anything you might not understand, etc. So please feel free to sort of unmute or use the chat, and I'll be able to respond in that sense. Perfect. Well, if there's no questions or anything like that, then feel free to, thank you, Duncan. Feel free to switch off, and you can have the rest of your night back. I will aim to touch base with you all over the next week by phone call. So if there's anything that does pop up from there, you can definitely ask me in a private capacity, or send me an email and ask me there. Thank you so much for your attendance. And as I said, I have recorded this session, and I will be able to make that available hopefully online for you, so you can share that with your committee, or you can rewatch it yourself. Have a great night, everyone.